Well, you all know by now that it is Bob's last day, and it's a sad day for all of us, but we want to take some time to chat with him. He's interviewed everyone from presidents to diplomats to people on big breaking stories. So let's talk to him today. It's time for Ask Bob. Hey, Bob.
Trina, a little weird to be sitting on this side.
I bet. And you know what? As long as I've known you, almost 12 years now, how did you even get in this business?
I've always, since I was a very small child, loved two things, and that was reporting, or being a reporter, and cars. From the time I was 7 years old, I knew I wanted to be a reporter.
Really? At 7?
At 7. And you know, when I was growing up, this was the only station in South Florida. So I always wanted to work for WTVJ.
Wow.
And the other thing is I always loved cars. I was a very unlikely person to end up in broadcasting because I had to overcome a couple of difficulties. As a young child, at about that age, I was a stutterer.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was a stutterer, and I was able to overcome that. My parents were very forward-thinking, and they sent me to a professional, and I was able to overcome that. But then, even into high school, I had another speech impediment. I had a lisp, and that was something that I was during high school. I worked for WFUN as a high school correspondent, and when I go back and listen to some of those tapes, which I still have, I can hear that lisp. And at one point, somebody said to me, "Hey, if you want to make it in this business, you have to somehow get rid of that lisp." And I went to a speech therapist, and I found out that it was actually a matter of placing my tongue in the wrong place. And I learned how to do it, and of course then I had to get over 16 years of saying it wrong. But I reached a point where I could say it, and the teacher, the therapist said to me, "When you leave here, on whatever day you decide to do it, you have to never go back and say it wrong again." And as soon as she said it, I said, "I'm going to do it." And for weeks I had to think and talk slowly to say the S's correctly, but ultimately it became, you know, an everyday thing, and I learned how to do it. But I had to get past those two things in order to get into real broadcasting.
I would have never thought in a million years you're smooth as silk on air. Amazing. All right, if you hadn't become the great newsman and journalist you are, what would you have done? What do you think?
Well, in school, I would always do reports on what I want to do when I grow up, and one of them was be in television news, and the other was selling cars. And since I grew up in the 50s and 60s, I would do reports on selling, and I cut out pictures of cars of the 50s and 60s, and so I actually never went and did that, but I still love that era of cars, and that's what I collect. So I actually got to do both of my passions in one way. I work with news, and I collect cars, which I love too. Okay,
well, let's stay in the past for a little bit. You worked with Ralph Rennick. You came to this station when it was the first station on air, right?
We were the first. For 7 years, this was the only station in South Florida.
What was that time like, and how do you contrast it to now, even if you can?
Well, it's really impossible. The era was totally different. Rennick took me on as an intern. I should say that I told you I wanted to work here from the time I was a kid. I called Rennick when I was in high school, and I said, "I want to work for you." He said, "Come on down, we'll talk." And he gave me ideas of electives to take in college, warned me not to major in broadcasting. He says, "I don't want reporters who major in broadcasting. I want you to have a wide background, geography, history, politics, know your community." Anyway, he, true to his word, after I graduated UF in '69, 41 years and 1 day ago today, on June 23rd, '69, I started here as an intern. And how different was it? We were shooting film. On that first day, there was a big plane crash on 36th Street, and I was too young and green to actually cover the story, so they used me to shuttle film back and forth. We had to actually take the film from the scene back to a film lab where it took an hour to be processed before it could be put on the air. There was no such thing as breaking news.
Unbelievable.
So then we went, you know, after film, of course, we went from black and white to color. Then in '75, we got videotape. We went ENG. In '75, I did the first live shot with we called it a live eye, and that, of course, is now the whole business is based around now, and you know what's happening at this minute. Back then, we just waited till 6 o'clock to put everything on.
Now, a lot of folks out there in TV land don't know this about you. You are quite the prankster, from fart machines to scaring the daylights out of me and Pam, pretending that we're already on air and we're not, and we think we've missed our hit.
You're giving away my secrets.
What's your best prank? Your all-time best prank, Bob?
Oh my! I can't. I don't know that I could. There are so many pranks that I pulled. All right, I'll tell you. I think the best one I did here was this machine you're talking about, this human anatomy machine. It was electronic. I taped it below the conference table in the news conference room about an hour before the 9 o'clock or 9:30 daily news meeting started, and had the remote control out here with a bunch of guys, and about every 3 minutes I'd hit the button, and you know, all the news people, the news director and the executive producers and all the reporters were around the table, and every time everyone would kind of look around, you know, and a couple of people walked out. They never knew it was me.
Oh my, well now they do. Okay, what was your relationship with Neil Rogers?
I wouldn't say
radio man.
I wouldn't say that I had a relationship with Neil Rogers. I mean, he would pick on me all the time.
He only does that if he likes people.
Yeah, I mean, he would joke that I said it took I had to sit on 2 phone books. One day, Joe Harzinski and I actually went to the studio when he was broadcasting in Miami and brought him 2 phone books and said, here's my gift to you. These are my phone books. I actually sat on a cushion, not phone books.
Okay, all righty. We're going to wrap this up, but a couple of questions from the crew. They want to know, okay, right now you go to bed at 5:30. You talk about it on the air all the time. What time are you going to start going to bed now?
I'm not going to look at the clock.
Okay. Oh, he's not going to look at the clock. So
when I get tired, you know, I'll go to sleep. Okay.
Anything important or exciting that you haven't been able to do with Bonnie, your wife, because of the schedule that you're going to do now?
Oh, Trina, a whole lot of things. I mean, our life has been off kilter from most of the world for the last 20 years. You know, if anybody wants to do something during the week, want to go to dinner at 7:30? No, sorry, I got to be in bed at 5:30. We'll be able to do anything and everything. That's probably the thing I'm looking forward to most, is having more quality time with Bonnie and being able to be with our friends during hours that that we all can share.
Okay. 41 years and a day. Any parting words to the viewers?
Just 2. Thank you so much. Thank you for trusting me, and thank you for watching all these years.
And thank you, Bob. It's been just a joy working with you.
Thanks, Trina.
Ouch!
Sorry.
Is that a prank?
Bob, what a prankster. Thank you, Bob Mayer, for 41 years of excellent service to our community. So, Bob, maybe you can go ahead and check out Chef Adrian's now on a weeknight at 7:30. Now that he's retiring, he doesn't have to be in bed at 6 o'clock. I'm sure Chef Adrian would be more than happy to have you and Bonnie and Chad when he's in town.
You know, Bob did my very first segment on NBC when I was 19 years old. My very first one.
And I'm sure it was magical. I'm sure it was maximum. I'm sure it was injected with maximum flavor, right?
Yep.
Well, speaking of